It is Monday, the 14th of October, 2024 at Protestia Studios. This is an intelligence briefing coming to you from Protestia.com, where, as always, go to find the latest in Christian polemics and discernment news, sign up for the Insurgency email blast, and support us financially over at Patreon.com/Protestia. Get ad-free browsing on the website, which is now back in business on a twice as powerful server. So hopefully some of the problems that we've had the last few weeks will have gone away. Thank you for sticking with us. In the meantime, let's get into the headlines. First headline at Protestia.com. Prosperity preacher Keion, I believe it's pronounced Keion Henderson, criticizes congregants for giving to the poor rather than tithing to him. Megachurch pastor Keion Henderson of the Lighthouse Church is under fire after being seen in a newly resurfaced clip warning congregants that if they give to the poor, they won't be blessed by God. Instead, he insists that if his listeners want to supernaturally multiply their wealth, they need to be tithing to his ministry. We would expect nothing less from him, from Henderson, who spends half his sermons preaching the prosperity gospel and the other half parading around his luxury clothing and accessories from the stage. As All Things Theology has pointed out, there's a link in our article. Keion is a huckster, terrible Bible preacher who can't go a single sermon without tickling people's itching ears and wallets, attempting to pluck pennies and coax coins away from unsuspecting victims. Let's watch a little bit of this clip.
Here's the other problem with the church is that anytime a person is in need, y'all go to running and dropping money. But let me tell you something, the poor will be with you always. And there is no blessing connected to blessing the poor other than getting back what you gave to them, but no multiplication. Multiplication is segregated for tithes and offering. When you give to the poor, the only thing you do is help them, but you don't help yourself. So when you give $1 to somebody on the street talking about I did my job, God like, thank you, but it ain't gonna help you. Read your Bible.
Yeah. Your Bible always tells you that giving things to other people is for your own benefit, right? You can read more about this over at Protestia.com, but safe to say, yeah, that's nonsense. And yeah, it's pretty horrible. Let's move on. Next headline at Protestia.com. NIFB pastor Steven Anderson involuntarily committed to psych ward for 24 hours. This over at Protestia a couple days ago. NIFB pastor Steven Anderson involuntarily committed to a mental institution for 24 hours, according to a since deleted post from his Facebook page. The controversial Arizona pastor from Faithful Word Baptist Church in Tempe, Arizona, has been under fire these past few weeks after his 4 oldest children started speaking up publicly against the firebrand King James Version onlyist, alleging vicious instances of domestic abuse against their mother, as well as physical and psychological abuse against themselves and their siblings, as can be seen by the articles that we have linked in the article that I'm reading from now over at Protestia.com. This was posted, it looks like a few days ago, by Isaac Anderson, who's Steven Anderson's son, saying, I have it on good authority. My father was picked up yesterday afternoon and taken involuntarily to the psych ward. Next service is going to be insane, literally. That last sentence seems a little mocking, so I think people were questioning, is that even true? And he said, well, no, it's not a joke. He was involuntarily committed yesterday. The person that preached, Chris Segura, I guess, preached at this church after that and had some choice words to say for Isaac.
And you guys aren't even going to church right now. You're staring at me right now. So I'm just trying to help you out. You think you're hardcore, Isaac? Get up. 3:45 a.m. Read your Bible. Read your Bible. Buy yourself an elliptical. Get shredded because you're pretty chubby.
So did he call him fat from the pulpit of the church? I mean, it seems ill-suited for a supposedly Christian pulpit. Apparently, and then Steven Anderson posted this YouTube video of Chris Segura preaching this, saying the sermon was an absolute banger. So I guess the sermon where he was calling his son fat or something like that. Let's just say the whole thing is quite the mess over at Steven Anderson's church there. You can read this story over at Protestia.com and follow the latest. if you would like to, but let's move on for now. Next headline at Protestia, megachurch pastor who stole nude pictures from congregant rearrested after another victim comes forward. A pastor who was arrested and arraigned for covertly stealing nude pictures from one of his congregants was rearrested in court immediately after pleading not guilty to those crimes, with law enforcement descending on him and leading him away in handcuffs for similar charges against another woman. Gabriel Mills was the quote-unquote guest experience pastor of Journey Church. Yeah, that's not a thing, for the record. A guest experience pastor is not a thing. When he hosted a small group in his home, at one point in the evening while helping a congregant download an audiobook on his phone, Mills accessed the private chat logs, found the nude pictures, and uploaded them to his own phone, where they were later found. Mills, who is married and has 5 young children, was charged with 2 counts of capturing an intimate representation. According to Lieutenant Josh Hecker of the Kenosha Police Department, as soon as his hearing was over, Mills was rearrested and cited by the Kenosha County Eye. We have a link to this in our article. The Kenosha County Eye reports that about a dozen church members were in court to show signs of support for Mills, and that Mills did not seem surprised at being rearrested. So, the process is still out on this. The headline seems scandalous, but we will wait and see what actually happens. Hard to say at this point if it looks like on here that maybe the new complainant came forward after hearing about the original complaint, the original charges, but we will see. We'll follow it over at protestia.com. Let's move on. Next headline at Protestia, prominent Roman Catholic priest holds pro-LGBTQ event. This is James Martin, prominent Roman Catholic priest known for having an outreach ministry for proud and open LGBTQ Catholics. We recently wrote about him for consistently urging the Roman Catholic Church to start celebrating Pride Month, for blessing a same-sex couple, and after Pope Francis commended his work, saying his ministry seeks to imitate the style of God, and that your pastoral zeal, your ability to be close to people with the closest that Jesus had, and which reflects the closeness of God. Earlier this week, Martin held a pro-LGBTQ event that several cardinals and members of the Synod of Synodality, is that really what they call it? Attended. You can read more about this over at protestia.com, but safe to say, this is not Christian, but Catholicism is not Christian generally, but certainly LGBTQ just adds an additional layer of depravity on the whole thing. You can see it over here. One of the main speakers was Christopher Vell, who leads the pro-LGBTQ Catholic group Drachma. We have a link to that if you are curious about what is going on over there. Let's move on to the next headline. Next headline at protestia.com. Eric Metaxas, stupidly, says pastors who won't preach on the need to vote are no better than pro-choicers. Christian author and political commentator Eric Metaxas is belting out a bunch of bad theology again, declaring that any pastor who doesn't spend their next sermon insisting that their congregants vote might as well be preaching pro-choice rhetoric. Now, I would take a little bit of an issue with the way that our staff writer wrote this in terms of, is it stupid because it's over the top? Yes. Is it bad theology? Arguably, depending on how you characterize it, but certainly characterizing a pastor not encouraging or insisting that their congregation votes is not akin. It's not akin to preaching pro-choice rhetoric. But I have argued, at least me personally, on multiple occasions, that in this country, we are the civil magistrate, we are the government, and we do have an obligation to participate in that process because the Bible ordains a purpose for civil government. And so long as God gives us the ability to exercise our authority as self-governors, as participating in the actions of the civil magistrate, we need to do so. It's a privilege and an authority and a power that God's given us, and He expects us to steward it for righteousness, just like He would any other civil magistrate. It's the same concept. And so, Eric Metaxas has got some issues with this for sure. It's stupid that he would compare the two, pastors insisting that their congregations vote, which I would argue they can and should make that argument biblically, but comparing it to, well, if you don't do that, you're basically preaching pro-choice rhetoric. That's a step too far, but you can read our wonderful and intrepid staff writers' analysis of this over at protestia.com. And also listen to, if you want to hear my longer explanation about this issue, head over to protestia.com and go to the watch and listen page for the Bully Pew podcast. It was posted earlier today. Should be up and on all podcast platforms at this point. But I think I called it Duty to Govern. And I explain how I arrive at my position on this a little bit more in detail. But you can go over to protestia.com to read more about that. Next headline at Protestia, Steven Anderson describes spending 24 hours in the psych ward is like listening to Charles Manson all night. Who knows if this is true or not, but this is a follow-up on the article that we were just talking about a couple minutes ago. And Steven Anderson was recently involuntarily committed and said, let me see if I have a video clip of this in the article. Let's see what he has to say. Rolling the dice here on this, I think.
Why are you trying to kill me?
I'm not.
Why do you? So who's trying to kill me?
I don't know.
Someone here wants to kill me. Who is it? Tell me who it is. But on Tuesday morning, I was just sitting in my room, minding my own business, reading Mark chapter 5 of all chapters in my Catalan New Testament, and the police came and took me to a mental institution against my will and checked me in there. The cops, when they picked me up at my house, they acted like I was just going to go see a doctor and then everything was going to be fine. But no, I get there and they check me into a mental institution for 72 hours. But I was told that I would see a doctor every 24 hours that could potentially discharge me. And I did end up getting out of there in a little less than 24 hours. The place was horrific. It was straight evil. But I will get to that later in the sermon. Why did this happen? Because that effeminate piece of crap, Lionel Caros, decided to fill out some document and lie and commit felony perjury, and he thought that he was going to be able to do it anonymously and we wouldn't know who it was. Well, guess what? We do know who it was, and we're getting those documents from the courthouse, and what he did is a felony. But I digress. Turn, if you would, to Mark chapter 3. Let me give you some people in the Bible who were accused of being insane. So
This is about a 7.5 minute clip over on Protestia's Twitter account, X account. You can watch it in the article. We have it embedded in there as well, or head over to Protestia's X account to see Steven Anderson's whole explanation. But suffice it to say, this torrid affair, this I don't know, scandal, maybe call it a scandal, I'm not sure, continues unabated over there at Steven Anderson's church. But we're going to move on. Next headline in Protestia, 32 million regular churchgoers expected to abstain from voting in November. Of course, related issue to what we're talking about with Eric Metaxas and the Christian duty, if they are the magistrate, in our case we are, to participate in civil government. A new report from George Barna's Cultural Research Center suggests that 104 million, quote, people of faith are not planning to vote in the upcoming election, including 32 million regular churchgoers. From the article, it says one of the most important findings of the research is the depressed voting intent of, quote, people of faith. The survey defines people of faith as either someone who describes themselves as a person of religious faith or as someone who associates with some recognized religious faith, such as Christianity, Judaism, Mormonism, Islam, etc. Among those are people who are defined by their beliefs regarding sin and salvation as born-again Christians, 41 million expected not to vote, self-identified Christians who regularly attend church services, 32 million, and voting-age adults who regularly attend an evangelical church, 14 million expected not to vote, according to the survey. Among the reasons given for not voting, 68% said there was a, quote, lack of interest in politics and elections, with another 57% disliking both candidates and 50% saying, quote, they will avoid voting because the election has become too controversial for their liking. Well, that certainly makes me sad. No, of course it doesn't. I happen to know, I don't know if you guys noticed this. I noticed this. That it seems like a lot of the people who complain the most about making politics an idol, turning politics into an idol, yada, 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 are the same people that are unwilling to participate in the process at all. That's, I guess that would not be a coincidence if we think about it that way. But yeah, we'll keep talking about it, keep following it. Last headline for this episode of the Intelligence Briefing: Maverick City Music under fire for collaboration with Viiiile artist. Hip-hop star Gorilla, a trashy spectacle of a human being who never released a music video that didn't feature her or other dancers maniacally twerking half naked or dropping copious N and F bombs, has joined forces with Maverick City Music and Kirk Franklin, no surprise there, for a collab on her new song Rain Down On Me from an album called Glorious. We have a lot of links in this article about the malfeasance over the years from Maverick City Music, such as posting pro-abortion messages, worship leaders issuing defiant apologies after salacious wedding photos going public. Obviously, we all know about Dante Bowe. There are lyrics in the article that I am talking about right now that I'm not going to read on the video because it'll probably get this video taken down, so on and so forth. But lyrics to this this person's album, Glorilla, excuse me, I said Gorilla. It's Glorilla. Yeah, I can't make this stuff up. The vast majority of Glorilla's album is a filthy ode to debauchery, violence, and wayward sexuality, featuring guests like Sexy Red and Megan Thee Stallion, where we get lyrics like, I'm not going to read them, they're that bad. They are in the article, as well as a picture of Glorilla double flipping the bird to you and me and apparently anybody else who is on the other side of the picture. But you can read more about this over at protestia.com. Suffice it to say, the Christian music industry, which is very much what it is usually about one step removed in its depravity, morally, ethically, epistemologically, from the secular music industry. And this is just another evidence of that being the case. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Intelligence Briefing, coming to you from protestia.com. Stay tuned to Protestia for all of your latest in Christian polemics and discernment news. We'll see you again real soon. As always, Semper Reformanda.